Let's check the latest news on Sushant Singh. Let's have a chat with Pallavi Sinha and Sanjeev Raja.
Hello viewers, my name is Sanjeev Raja. We have been reading and listening and watching a lot about Sushant Singh Rajput, who has recently committed suicide, as what they say. But there are schools of thought where they are saying that he had some mental health issues, and then there are number of stories coming from the media, from elsewhere. So I'm going to talk to Today we are going to talk to Pallavi ji. Pallavi ji, welcome to the show. We are going to talk about Sushant Singh Rajput, his mental health issues, and why do you think, or did he commit suicide or was he killed? What are your thoughts on that?
Thanks, Sanjeev ji, for the opportunity to come on the show with Friends World TV. Before we start exploring the questions, I also wanted to express my sincere condolences to the family and friends of the late departed Sushant Singh Rajput ji. He was such a multi-talented young actor. He was in his prime, only about 34 years old, and in the movies I've watched of his, he performs in such a fantastic way. And I also hope the media really remembers the human dimension to this. Not only has a young man who did so well from scratch been lost, but also his father, who is about 74 years old, has been left with no more son, with his son no longer with him.
Absolutely.
And it is such a sad thing.
And I mean, the way he came from outside, a very talented student of Delhi College of Engineering, stopped his engineering in year 2 or second year or something, and then he was also well known in his circles, an astronomer who had and you know that he had bought a land on the moon. So I mean, he was very intelligent, technically sound person, came from outside and made a mark in the industry, and he had a place. So there were people who would naturally get jealous of him or feel threatened because of his talent and his knowledge and his experience. So that's another aspect to his personality.
Absolutely, because it's a story that many of us would relate or aspire to be. That, you know, someone so young who came from humble beginnings, worked really hard, had no connections in the Bollywood industry, and lived the Indian dream.
Yes. He started virtually as a third row dancer behind some of the dance sequences in Bollywood songs. You can see him standing right at the back, and so he's come from there to become a hero and a very creditable actor.
And I'm so glad we're having this conversation because it's not just his family and friends, it's also the state of Bihar, Bihar ka beta. It has been lost, also the entire nation of India, and a lot of us outside of India, including here in Australia, have been glued to the TV screens and all the media reports of what is happening and how this young man died.
This has been going on for a while now. Now the question is, what do you think about the way Mumbai police is following up this case, or what do you think the outcomes are likely to be?
Yes, well, getting back to your earlier question where you were talking about the fact that the revelations immediately after his death were that he committed suicide because he was depressed.
Yeah.
Now, I have been a very long-standing advocate in the area of mental health for a long time.
Right.
I've been involved with resilience and wellbeing courses with lawyers here in Australia. And one of the most important things is to be very, very careful about the way mental health is talked about. To immediately draw conclusions so quickly.
Yep.
Just a few hours after his death, there were media reports left, right and centre. This man committed suicide because he was depressed.
I mean, they just have drawn a conclusion immediately.
Just a few hours. I mean, there was not even a post-mortem report
Yes,
or the
yes.
coroner's report that had been done properly. The other thing is, I mean, the figures of the amount of depressed people in India,
Yes.
according to a study by WHO, that is the World Health Organization in 2019, sadly, India has the world's highest level of depression. We're talking about 200 million people, 1 in 5 people. And does that mean that every depressed person is going out and committing suicide?
But then it's a taboo in India. People don't want to talk about it. Although they know there are people in their families or houses, they're depressed or they have got mental health issues, that is something they put sort of under the carpet. That's a tendency. So I don't know how truth it is or how far this is true that he had mental health issues to that extent that he would take his own life. I mean, this is something which is very debatable.
Absolutely. And look, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I am a former Lifeline counsellor like yourself,
Oh, yeah.
Sanjeev ji. But for me, the issue really is whether he had depression or he didn't. Let's say he didn't, then first of all, they shouldn't be putting out all these reports
Absolutely.
that he did. But if he did,
Yes.
then why is there this link being drawn to depression and therefore he committed suicide straight away?
Because that's the most convenient line of thought. Because, okay, the person is depressed, so what do you think he'll do? In extreme cases, he will go and hang himself. So that makes the life of Mumbai police and the people who have probably engineered all this becomes very easy, because it's a very straightforward line of action where they can just say, oh yeah, he was depressed and he just committed suicide. That is something being challenged right, left and center nowadays. People in Bihar, people in Mumbai, people all over the world are questioning the theories, the work the Mumbai police has done, and their prestige is on stake.
Absolutely. And look, the FIR has been lodged in Bihar with the Patna police. And I'm really pleased that there are further investigations that are taking place because, look, I don't want to comment on what's happened with the Mumbai police investigation or, I don't know, I'm not involved personally. But what I do see is that as the Patna Bihar police have become involved,
Yes.
more and more things are becoming unearthed. Whether that's because they had an FIR or not, that's a moot point. But it does seem like there are key witnesses. For example, Ankita Lokhande. I
Yes.
watched her interview yesterday and she said that there was no statement taken from her by the Mumbai police. Someone who had been so close to Sushant ji, the late Sushant ji, for about 6 years.
Yes.
They did not even take a statement from her.
Look at this Kangana Ranaut. She has been saying all about this right from day one. They haven't taken her statement. She is ready to come and talk to Mumbai police, but they don't want to talk to her. That's another very strange thing. So there was a school of thought at one stage that it could have been that he was isolated and he was victimized as a outcome of neopatism, that he being an outsider, they were offering him films, and then after some time they asked it back, they used to remove him. So that there were 6 or 7 films like that, some of the big budget ones. So that is another thing which has raised initial concern, but the more the revelations are coming now, we are seeing that the story is moving towards a planned murder.
And that is quite possible. And that is why the investigation process is so important. And it is really important that key witnesses are spoken to and it is done in a very thorough manner. I am aware that on the 5th of August the matter is going before the Supreme Court to then decide who has jurisdiction, because the FIR was actually lodged with the Patna police in Bihar, but the matter was being investigated in Mumbai because the death took place in Mumbai. But the most important thing is we want the truth to come out. We want justice. I mean, this man, I understand what you're saying, that there are a lot of debates going on about nepotism and the Bollywood influence, but he was at a pinnacle in his career. He was doing very well. He'd had a couple of big hits
Yes.
like Chichore and Dhoni and Kai Poche.
Yep.
I would not say he's someone who was struggling and not doing well, and therefore, you create this narrative that he was depressed and down and out. He was so bright, as you mentioned earlier, very intelligent. Big loss for all of us.
Sure. But as you say that on 5th of August, the Supreme Court is going to come out with a verdict on this, I can also see that Subramaniam Swamy and his lawyers, that's a team which is following it up, and they are requesting, even from Prime Minister, to intervene and ask for a CBI investigation in this. This is something which Mumbai police is very strictly, they are trying to avoid it at any price. And now we are hearing there are some people from the government or from the ministers were involved. So this is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, as it seems to me.
And that's another key issue. There have been worldwide demands for CBI investigation into this matter. And for those who are not clear what CBI means, it's a national approach.
Yes.
And given that there are these jurisdictional battles going on between the Bihar government and the Mumbai government about who should investigate, well, CBI I think would be a very important dimension to come into it. And also there's actually now a national dimension to the case.
Yes.
The Enforcement Directorate, which is a
ED.
national body of India, has started investigating the money laundering angle.
There-
So there's
yeah.
already a national dimension there.
There-
Why are they delaying the CBI? I think that's really quite unfortunate and unacceptable.
I think the way I understand is that they are waiting to watch what ED comes out with, and then there is a money trail, and the money trail will be easier to investigate, to find out, because if a money has been taken out from an account and has been deposited somewhere, there is a trail, so they can follow it up. Rather than, as you can see, that the footage of the cameras in that building are missing, and there are things. I think the crime scene has been also not been pure as such. So things are very, very confusing at this stage. That's why I have a feeling the CBI will get involved sooner or later, because even I can see the Chief Minister from Bihar has said that if the father of Sushant wants to have CBI inquiry, we'll push for it.
Absolutely. And there are all these dimensions to it. But my big concern is the longer this gets delayed, the harder it is to collect evidence. As it is, from what I've read and seen reported in the media, they did not properly cordon off the area where the death occurred. And so that means that evidence potentially, I'm not saying it was, but it could have been tampered with. There are people now able to walk in and out of the place of the death. Just yesterday I saw a video of someone taking the film crews into the actual apartment.
Right.
So there is no sealing of the crime scene at all now. And even a few hours just after the death, I heard reports that it was not adequately done. And there are all these other dimensions, as you mentioned, the political dimension, the Bollywood dimension, film industry. There's rumours that there was some big VVIP at some party. But the most important thing is justice, and that truth comes out.
One thing is sure, that this investigation or this the people are following this trail for a long time. We have seen so many people have died. There are people who have died in circumstances which are unexplained, but the whole world is following it up for last so many days. That is very credible. That means people do want to know what has happened.
Absolutely, and it's about holding institutions to account.
Absolutely.
Because if there is a cover-up, I'm not saying there is, but if there is, that is not acceptable either. I mean, we have a lot of great aspects in India. We're the world's largest democracy, and I'm very proud to have Indian roots. But if there is cover-ups and corruption or political or film industry influence that is improperly being used, that is not good, and that is why platforms like this being used in a positive way. Twitter has been outstanding with so many tweets demanding a CBI inquiry. There was a digital protest recently as well that I know Nina Badwarji here in Australia was promoting everyone to get involved with. And it's not just because this guy was a big Bollywood star. It's about who he is and who he represented.
Yeah.
That he was a man with humble beginnings. He was young. He worked hard to reach the successful place he was in, and suddenly he supposedly committed suicide according to some reports. I still refer to it as a death where the causes are not clear.
Come to think of it, I mean, he was a rather young person
34.
and had a few films, very good ones, but few films. And some very good ones have been taken from him. Still, he had people connected to him because of some reason. People are not leaving this issue. For so many days I am seeing that people are doing everything possible for whatever they can, and they're talking only about. Now you go to YouTube or you go to any news channels or anywhere, people are talking about it every day, and this is not going to die easily. And I'm sure sooner or later CBI inquiry is something which people will probably push the government, the central government or regional government, and get it.
Absolutely. That's the least we can do to give his legacy some justice. I really hope that a CBI inquiry does result from this, but also the fact that we are all agitating, as you said, I think that's fantastic. Republic TV has been leading the way in doing a 24-hour almost investigation, and I've seen a lot of the other news channels coming in and doing sting operations and investigations as well. And this is all about holding institutions to account, because we want to, as citizens, whether it's of Australia or India or the USA or any other country, be able to have trust in the police system and the justice system. And I really, really do hope that they give some credence to allowing a full, proper and thorough investigation to take place.
When we were very young, we used to see that Mumbai police is one of the best police in the world. And now, with this investigation, I think they need to come out clean. They need to prove that they are the best. The way we used to know, the way Mumbai police used to do things, at the moment, I think they need to pick up their game and come out with truth.
Yeah, definitely. If there are any elements that are being improperly influenced by powerful people in some way, that is not a good thing. I'm sure there are good elements in the Mumbai police who have tried to do a good investigation, but there are too many stones that were left unturned that are now taking on some appearance since the Bihar and Patna police have become involved.
I also want to add here that people should not take mental health as taken for granted and just pin out on somebody and then, okay, he had mental health issues, so he has committed suicide. So that is a very easy path, and this is something which should not be used. It should be a proper investigation, a criminal investigation, till it is proved that the person hanged himself, or was he hanged, or was he killed before. So this is a story that needs to come out and clean.
Absolutely, and that's why in the beginning of this interview I was discussing with you that it is unacceptable that just a few hours, or not even that, after he was found dead, all the reports in the media that were going wild were that he committed suicide and he was depressed. What kind of a narrative is that? There are 1 in 5 Indians who are depressed. They are not all going out and committing suicide. But that's even if he has depression. We don't even know conclusively. I'm not a psychiatrist. I wasn't treating him. I'm not a psychologist. But whether he was or he wasn't, this narrative should not have gone out in the media so quickly.
Absolutely.
And it perpetuates the problem, because there could be people, and unfortunately I have read reports that there are people who have committed suicide after hearing about him.
Yes.
And if you start making a depressed person think, oh, depressed people commit suicide, that's not a good effect to have on people either, that message getting out in the media.
That is the message which is going to people, and that is not a correct message. I mean, mental health issues are treatable, they are curable. So that's not the ultimate that, oh, you have mental health issues, so you have only one option, only one way to go. So that is something, a wrong message that has gone to the people, and that should be corrected.
Absolutely agree, and particularly from a country like India, which has a ministry, Ayushi,
Yes.
And I've always been a very strong advocate of holistic health. I've spoken about this on TV before, which involves all different dimensions, like physical health, like nutrition, all those sort of things.
Yes.
And Sushant Singh, the late dear Sushant Singh, he was very active with exercise. According to reports his sisters put out or have been revealed through a family friend, he was doing meditation and yoga with her just a few days before he died. He was really doing well in his career. He had a lot of dreams and ambitions, whether, as you also mentioned, with NASA and astronomy and all these things. There just seems like there's so many things that don't add up and do not make sense.
Thank you, listeners, for listening to us, and thank you, Pallavi ji. It was very nice talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sanjeev ji. It was a pleasure to talk to you and the viewers.
Thank you.